It's 2016. Netflix is advertising this new show. It's being promoted as Winona Ryder's new show. Gasp! Winona Ryder. We love Winona Ryder. Follows a mother in a small town when suddenly her son goes missing. I'm obviously talking about Stranger Things. So Stranger Things, it premiered in 2016, I believe in July. And this was obviously like right before shit hit the fan in 2016. But when it premiered, it became a really, really big hit. Whether that be for better or for worse. With anything that becomes popular, there's always that potential for people to demand a lot more of it. And that's sort of what happened. I mean, they did set it up for a possibility of season 2 at the end of season 1. But it's almost been 10 years. And we've just gotten the first volume of the last season. And there's a few problems with this that I have. And I think many people feel those issues as well. I think it's one of those things that is commonly discussed on TikTok or Twitter about the problems with Stranger Things. But my thing, I think Stranger Things has overstayed its welcome. Yeah, I think it used to be a really good and self-contained show that has now fallen into this like really, really big, complex story that it didn't need to be. You're definitely looking at me and you're like, oh my God, who is this person? Why do they think that they're so much more qualified to talk about this? Why do they think that they know more about Stranger Things? I don't think I know more about Stranger Things than like the average person. But I'm very fixated on things. So, hi, my name is Ray. I, like many of you, am a consumer of media, and I like to consume things over and over and over again. And I also went to school for screenwriting, so I do have a little bit of film knowledge. I know how to write scripts, I know how to create characters, and I'm not going to say that I'm better than any of these writers or directors or actors or anything for these shows. It's just using what I know, like the little ins and outs of writing and stuff. And now I have a place where I can actually like talk about the things that I am really into. And for like the last 9.5 years or so with Stranger Things, I really liked the show. I think season 1 is like one of the most perfect seasons of TV, I guess. So what I want to do is like with what I know about writing, with what I know about the show, I kind of want to talk about like my personal gripes with it, of what could have been just a really, really good like 1 or 2 season thing, and how it ended up becoming what it is now, which isn't to say that the show is bad. I don't think anything about the show is bad necessarily. That might actually, I think I'm wrong. I think there are some things that are really, really bad about this show, but I more want to just like explore that, talk about like the strengths, the weaknesses, and I think part of doing that is talking just like about the show itself, but then also talking about the things that changed after season 1. I don't want to like bore anyone with every single season because there's a lot of seasons, there's a lot of content. But I want to say that like Stranger Things was a really, really good show in season 1. Season 2, it was pretty okay. Season 3 is when things start to get a little weird. Season 4, they try to bring it back, and then now we're at season 5. And season 5 is interesting. It's not, I don't know. I can't give a full opinion because, disclaimer, the last few episodes haven't come out yet. Yeah, we have to wait until like freaking New Year's for the last episode of season 5, which is the last episode, point blank, period. Anyway, yeah, let's talk about it. So one of the things I do want to talk about is I want to talk about how season 1's pilot, just the overall pilot, the vanishing of Will Byers, is, I would arguably say, like, a perfect pilot. So I wanna like quickly break it down. I'm gonna put some pictures up of the characters so you can see who I'm talking about. Okay, disclaimer. I only printed out the pictures of these characters from like the first time we see them. Anyway, I'm gonna get those pictures set up. Give me 1 second. There's so many fucking characters, by the way, that's one of those things that I will be talking about, is how many freaking characters they decide to add into this show. That is one of my problems. We're getting there. We are getting there. Okay, so to start, we have, this is crazy of how I'm holding the microphone right now, but we have our main 4 boys who we start the show with in season 1. I hope you can like actually see them from there. Okay, number 1, we have Mike Wheeler. Number freaking 2, Lucas Sinclair, one of my goats. Number 3, we have Dustin. I love Dustin. And then, of course, we have Will. So the show opens with these 4 characters. They're playing Dungeons and Dragons. That's sort of how the show is set up. It shows us like this really, really good balance between these characters, their adorable little friendship. We have Mike, who's the DM, and then the rest of them are playing as the characters. They're trying to fight off a Demogorgon. That's like their big old battle. And they want Will to do something about it. They convince him to throw a fireball at it, and it doesn't land, it doesn't hit him, meaning that he got taken by the Demogorgon. And you know what fucking happens as soon as he leaves? He gets taken by the Demogorgon. After that, we're introduced to people. Hopper, of course, as my outfit is based on, if you couldn't tell, Joyce, mother, Winona Ryder. We also do meet Nancy, who is Mike's sister, and she is dating Steve Harrington. And then, of course, we can't forget about the love triangle between these characters with Jonathan Byers, who you just like really can't see him in this picture. This was literally the only good picture from season 1 I could find, and I'm so sorry to Jonathan Byers. We got that. Oh, and then of course, we cannot forget about the icon 11, or as she goes by later, Elle. So these are like our main focus of season 1, these guys. There are a couple of other characters. I didn't print out their pictures because they're not really that important to the story. I realized I didn't print out a picture of like the big bads, but I did draw one, so let me get that. All right, here's like, I don't know, you can't really, there we, I'm not good at drawing, but, oh my god, it's not focusing, but yeah, I drew the Demogorgon, because the Demogorgon is like, kind of the big bad of season 1. Like, he's not like calling it a he, it's an it, but the Demogorgon is ultimately the thing that takes Will. Yeah, anyway, so season 1, episode 1, we meet the boys, we meet all of our really important characters, and the show is, the whole point of season 1 is we're trying to find Will Byers. Where the hell did Will go? Is he dead? Is he alive? We have no idea. And as soon as he disappears, this random ass little girl, 11, just shows up, and we're like, oh my god, who's this? Who's this girl? Who's this girl with a little tattoo and a shaved head? That's so weird. That's so weird. So the whole thing is like boys, after Will disappears, he just goes bye-bye. The 3 boys, they're so hell-bent on trying to find their friend. They want to find Will because they love him, especially Mike. Mike is very distraught at the loss of his best friend. which makes sense. And then when they're trying to find him, who do they find but Eleven? And so they take her to Mike's home, and they're like, oh my God, who's this random girl? But then there's also the interpersonal dramas between like Nancy and Steve, and then she's like getting down with the popular hot guy. Joyce is obviously so distressed at the loss of her little boy. She's like, where's my boy? Where's my boy? I tried to like replicate her fit. It doesn't obviously have this for her, but this is like the only jacket that like I kind of had that worked for like a Joyce fit. I don't have like a striped shirt like she does, but I don't know. Can you see it? Can you see my makeup? I tried to like do Christmas lights makeup because of how iconic it is when she later discovers that her son, Will Byers, is alive. The pilot sets up everything perfectly. You have Will, who goes missing. You have all the stuff going on with them, which is later, which I'm pointing to, I really don't know if you can see them. I'm pointing to Nancy and Steve. Their interpersonal stuff. Joyce and Jonathan are trying to figure out what happened to Will. And Hopper, who's obviously the cop in the town, is like, oh my God, a kid is missing. This is like the first crazy ass thing that has happened since I'm chief. And so he's doing his job. He's doing his job as a cop. And the episode ends with them finding Al, blah, blah, blah. And the season goes on. We discover that, oh my God, Will isn't actually dead. There's something more mysterious and crazy going on in this town. There's something mysterious happening. We don't know what it is. We are sort of learning and figuring this out just as much as the rest of the characters are. And I think that's sort of what sets up season 1 as being really perfect, is that it's like this sci-fi horror mystery show. Because the mystery is, oh my God, where did Will go? The sci-fi is all this Demogorgon science-y shit about like interdimensional beings, telepathy, and then the horror stuff comes from all of the like death and gore that ends up happening because of the Demogorgon. There's also like the looming threat of the US government, and because it's obviously the 80s, oh my God, communism. Even though it doesn't really get talked about that much in season 1, we'll circle back to that. But like when they're talking to the parents because they're trying to find Elle, it's very much like the government has like this in or something with everything. They're trying to like figure that ish out because they're doing these experiments on these fucking kids. Like, her name is 11. She has a tattoo where it's like 011, which means there's definitely other kids. There's other kids in this. And we're like, oh my God, what is this looming threat of the government? What are they trying to figure out? Because obviously we're against the commies. We have the Cold War. It's crazy town. I think like one of the funniest parts is just like Ted Wheeler, who is obviously Mike Wheeler's dad, talking to his mom and being like, we have to trust the government, honey. They know what's best for us. By the way, they voted for Reagan, so think about that. I was going to go through the entire pilot, but I feel like that's just so much. That's like a lot to try to go through. So we don't really need to, but I want to talk about why I think season 1 is great, because it is this very contained story. The boys, everyone is just trying to find Will. That's the thing. Everyone wants to know what the fuck happened to Will. And with the help of 11, we're able to sort of have a better understanding about what happened to Will, but we still don't know everything. Things are still left a mystery, and like the last episode has them finding Will. We find Will. The mystery is solved. And then the episode is ending and he throws up a little Demogorgon or whatever, which is important later. And then we see Hopper leaving like Eggos in a box. And as we know from season 1, Elle loves Eggos. She's obsessed with them. She steals them from a supermarket right before this iconic scene where she's like, I'm going to save my future boyfriend from dying when he jumps off a cliff. And then I'm going to break this little boy's arm. But basically, the whole mystery of what happened to Will is solved. That was the main plot line. what the hell happened to Will? And then season 2, it's fine, you know? We have season 2, we add the lovely Max Mayfield. She's iconic. And then, hold on, I left him over there because, like, I left him over there because he's, like, really not that important. But I guess if we're going to be talking about, like, all the stuff that happens later on with, like, the show and Max and everything, we do have to bring Billy into it. So season 2 introduces Billy. Billy and Max, they're, like, the main new additions to the show. And with season 2, it's sort of following just, like, what's going on with Will. It doesn't do a lot of different things. Like, it's still a mystery. Hopper's still smart and figuring things out. Joyce is still concerned. Oh yeah, like in season 1, we have Barb and Steve and Jonathan and stuff, but, like, Nancy and Steve break up, and then that leaves room for Nancy and Jonathan because of love triangles and everything. That's just so important. I'm just going to get it out of the way right now. I don't care about the relationship stuff in this show. I don't. I'm here for the mystery of it all. I'm here to figure out how the hell are they going to get themselves out of this stuff, because so much freaking happens. And it changes all these characters, and then we don't really get to talk about it. Put a pin in that. So anyway, it's just like what's happening with Will. And 11 sort of figures out, like, a lot more about what's going on with, like, her, how to control her powers, like, what's going on with her mom, because she realizes she had a mom. Season 2, it just very much is following what happens in season 1, just with the introduction of a couple of more characters. Then we get to season 3. Season 3 is when one of my least favorite plot lines is added in. I mean, it does add some more, like, really iconic things that happen. Because, of course, we get Robin. And then we also get more of Erica, who is Lucas's sister. Iconic. She's freaking iconic. But season 3 adds in this whole, like, Russia plot line, and that's when I was like, okay, I think we're starting to lose the plot of what Stranger Things was originally. Now we have, like, this really, really big threat that, like, I don't feel like we had before. Like, yeah, okay, we had the Demogorgon, we had all of this interpersonal drama, and the Demodogs, the Mind Flayer. The Mind Flayer is important from season 2 because that's, like, what possesses Will, and that's what the whole, like, oh my god, what's going on with Will? But he's inhabiting Billy now. And then with Billy, it's basically like trying to create an army for the Mind Flayer to kill 11. And then there's some stuff with Russia going on the side, and that's where they decide to demote Steve, Dustin, and Erica and Robin. That's what they're figuring out. And then season 4, all the characters are split up. 11, Mike, Will, Jonathan, and Joyce, they're all in California because they move away, which is fair. And then you have pretty much everyone else dealing with the other things. Oh, Joyce is then going to rescue Hopper from Russia. I didn't really talk a lot about that. Too much freaking happens in this show. Season 4 does add in Eddie Munson and our newest and biggest bad, who has apparently maybe been doing all of this from the start of Henry Creel /1/Vecna. Here he is in his monstrous glory. That sounds really weird. And it's just trying to figure out how to stop Vecna from opening the gates between Hawkins and the Upside Down to, like, let all that stuff in. I just also want to say that this is not every single character that is like important to the show. There are a bunch of other characters that I just didn't print out because there's so many. And some of these characters like play a significant part in their seasons and then they're killed off. Put a pin in that too. There's a lot of pins being put here. But I feel like these are like the really important characters. I guess now for like season 5, there's some other really important characters, but like, do they matter? I don't know. I don't know if it'll like, I don't know if anything is backwards from the camera and stuff, but like, we have like Bob Newby and Barb and Alexi. I don't know if I spelled his name right. Do we have anyone else? I mean, there's Chrissy from season 4, but she dies in the first episode, so I don't know if that necessarily matters. Oh my god, Holly, because she's so important to season 5 now. Yeah, I don't know how much of this you can fucking see. This setup might change after this first episode, guys. I don't know. My god, I'm winded because so much fucking happens in this show. And I haven't even gotten to the meat of this whole thing yet. Give me a second. Okay, so like, the major differences from like season 1 to season like 3 and onward is, for a show that kept things very like contained within Hawkins, it has become incredibly huge. It's no longer just about Hawkins. It's no longer just about these characters. It's about, I guess, almost saving the world. I don't really know what's exactly going on for this whole, like, breaking of the world in Hawkins that happens in season 4 at the very end, where it's like this major earthquake. From the major earthquake, a lot of the upside down particles are coming through, shit like that. But it is also like each season sort of adds more and more to like the very like heavy 80s nostalgia, which was like fine. I think what was really cool about season 1 was that it wasn't just like fully focused on this is the 80s. It was a horror mystery sci-fi set in the 80s. So things are, you know, we have the techno music in the background, which is just so awesome and perfect. There's small references here and there to a bunch of other 80s movies and TV shows. There's some songs that are played, but it's not like being shoved down your throat. Season 2, they start doing a little bit more. Season 3 is when it's like full 80s nostalgia. And that includes bringing in Russia. And then season 4, it's pretty 80s, like the costuming and all of that is pretty 80s. God, it's been a while since I've watched season 4. That wasn't just other people reacting to it. I remember I really liked season 4 when it came out. I thought it was cool trying to like uncover this mystery about who is this Henry Creel guy, who is one, what is going on with the powers. But because of that, it feels like it does retcon a lot from the first seasons before it. And that's one of the things I'll say. I feel like people on Twitter or TikTok or Instagram or whatever social media people are bringing this to talk about Stranger Things, I just really don't think anything was planned past season 1. Maybe a little bit of season 2, but after that I feel like they were just trying to add more because people wanted more from the show. And that is one of the things that I'm like kind of upset about. I feel like if they really sat down and had this whole thing figured out from season 1 for 5 seasons, it would be a lot better. But so many people are trying to be like, look, this was planted in season 1 and now this is what's going to happen because of this, and like making these theories. But like, I really just don't think the Duffer Brothers really got that far. I don't think the Duffer Brothers got that far. I think they had ideas, but ever since then, they've had to like add more to make the story make sense. So again, like I've said, I think season 1 really was a horror mystery drama, and now at season 5 it has horror aspects to it, but it's just like full action now, which doesn't necessarily have to be a problem. But I think what was really successful from season 1 was the horror aspect, was the mystery aspect. I don't feel like there's really a mystery anymore, other than like, why is Vecna doing what Vecna's doing? Why did he take all these kids? Why is this pedophile trying to take over the world? Now with the action stuff, it's so big. I think the show and the storylines are way too big, because you have like Eleven and Hopper, and they're like now in the Upside Down trying to figure everything out, and then like everyone in the Right Side Up is trying to figure stuff out, but then now we have Nancy, Jonathan, Steve, and Dustin in the Upside Down with Elle and Hopper, but in a completely different area. Will now has powers, which I will say, I think Will having powers from the context of season 2 makes sense. He has a connection to the hive mind, to the mind flayer, to Vecna, because Vecna, I guess, came through and was like blah, 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 with his like pedophilic tentacles. One of my friends has this theory that like he's just been dead the whole time, and honestly, I would buy that. I would think like, based on how dangerous the Upside Down was from season 1 and a little bit of season 2, like, yeah, he's dead. They rescued a corpse and he's just sort of alive based on this science fiction wahoo whatever. It's not like out there. You know, he has his telekinetic powers. They're more similar to Henry Creel's powers over 11, which I think should remain a thing. I mean, we haven't seen him fully use his powers yet, but like very much focused on like him being able to look through the eyes of the Demogorgon, being able to see Vecna as he's stalking these children. I mentioned earlier, one of my bigger issues about Stranger Things is a lot of the Russia stuff. I thought Russia was used kind of like almost as like a background threat that was being used by the US government in order to justify why they were doing things to these kids, why they were in Hawkins doing these experiments, why they were knocking down on the doors of the parents through the seasons when they're trying to like figure out what's going on. But once it gets to like season 3, it opens with the Russians. We see that Russia is going to be playing a major part in season 3, and then of course they're under the mall and they're trying to open up a portal back into the Upside Down after Elle had just closed the gate. For some reason they want a Demogorgon. They want to have this sci-fi supernatural powerhouse that is able to kill people, isn't able to be shot, like wants access to the Upside Down for some nefarious reasons because communism. And of course that's like where we bring in like Erica and Robin, because then they go off with Steve and Dustin, and their whole storyline is figuring out what's happening with the Russians, because Dustin's like, oh my god, I have intercepted a Russian communication and we might be able to figure out what it is that they're saying, and if we do that we can stop the Russians and we can be American heroes. And they bring in Robin because Robin knows 4 languages and is musical, so she's able to figure out and help decipher the Russians. And then Erica comes in as like the small person to get them access into where the Russians are, which is under the Starcourt Mall, which was added into season 3 is like this new, very 80s out there thing. And like the whole time they don't get caught in Russia. By the Russians in season 3. They're able to hide for a while until ultimately Steve and Robin are taken by the Russians, and they're like interrogated, and they're like, who are you working for? And they're like, we work at Scoops Ahoy. That's all we do. I scoop ice cream. And now you're mad at me because I scoop ice cream. Which, like, I guess because Russians have to be the bad guys, it makes sense. But from what was like, oh, the United States government is doing something, suddenly went into, no, it's the Russians. It's all the Russians. They're the ones that are messing things up now. Which I was like, it could be fine, you know? Like, it doesn't... I don't want to give them credit for the Russian stuff because I just don't think it had any place in Stranger Things, and I think that's part of what made it too big, is that suddenly now we have another country involved in this stuff, meaning that this can become a threat for the rest of the world. And that's where it's like, oh no, now we're getting into the whole we have to save the world thing. And I know they mentioned that Elle has saved the world a few times, but like, that was from like the Demogorgon, and it was just one, and she was able to send it back to the Upside Down, and that made the world safe because now we don't have this monster. And in season 2, she closes the gate, and all the stuff that are happening underneath Hawkins with the tunnels and the vines and everything, it doesn't matter anymore. But now the Russians are messing everything up for us. They are messing it all up. They're opening the gate, they're letting the mind flare through, and he takes over Billy, and then Billy is like infecting other people with the mind flare. And as they're like infecting all these other people and stuff, like it just gets to be really fucking big. Because now they have to physically fight this huge monster. It's not just about getting it out of Will. It's not about getting like this entity that doesn't really have a lot of power in the right side up. Now this thing has a certain amount of power because it is affecting Billy, who's affecting everyone else. And then like Elle loses her powers at the end of season 3, and the only way that they survive is because Billy is able to like detach himself or something from the mind flare, and then they are able to kill it because they also close the gate. And then that like brings us to season 4, where like they tried to close the gate, and I guess they kind of closed the gate, and then I guess Henry / Vecna is now trying to like reopen the gate so that he can get whatever he wants from the right side up, which I still don't exactly understand what Vecna's motivations are. But then because we get the fake out that like Hopper died in season 3, Joyce and this other fucker Murray, who I don't give a fuck about. I don't think he really needed to come back after season 2. They try to go rescue him from Russia, which is like, okay, but there's really not much else happening with Russia other than they have a Demogorgon and they're letting people trying to fight it, and I guess this is like their punishment for war crimes or being American or being bad, I don't know. And so because of that, it's like they have to figure the Russia stuff out. And then now it's season 5. Where did Russia go? I mean, obviously Russia still exists within the context of the show, but they're not like a character, like a threat anymore. They sort of brought back that the US government is more of the threat. They sort of started that in season 4 because they're like trying to go after Elle. I don't know, it's been a while since I watched season 4, so I don't exactly remember why they want Elle. And then in season 5, I guess they're just like, I remember that in season 4, she like killed a couple of military people, so I guess they're like upset about that. And they want her power, and I guess they think that maybe she's the one that's doing all the stuff in Hawkins, which is like, damn, people just need to have conversations sometimes, because other than that, I think they would maybe understand that there's some other guy who was the one that actually killed all the kids in the Hawkins lab, not her, and she's the one that's been saving the day since she was like 8 or something. But yeah, now season 5 is like all of them trying to figure out what's going on with Henry, why he's doing what he's doing, and we want to save the world while we're in our quarantine zone of Hawkins. One of the things that I am like super duper upset about for the show is a lot of the character assassinations. I don't want to call them like fully assassinations. I think that they had to like bring back all the things that made our characters really, really cool and like subdue them in order to fit in this whole storyline. That is sort of what I mean as well when I say that this show has gotten too big. It's gotten so big that now we have to sacrifice the things that were really good about the show in the first place, like our characters and the dynamics that they had with each other from season 1, in order to finish the story, finish telling the story. Like, season 1 was so good because of the characters. Like, Mike was such a good character in season 1. He was so hell-bent on trying to find his best friend Will, and he really likes this new girl 11, who he doesn't really know anything about her, but he helps her try to find this identity. I saw someone like mention that on Twitter, that he's like, well, my name is Mike, short for Michael, so if your name's 11, we can call you Elle for short. He's helping her give her that identity. And then he has that like fight with Lucas, who I think out of all of the characters, like Lucas and Max have sort of stayed where they were in terms of their character, but now of course like Max is in her coma, so she doesn't really get to do much. But like they have their problems because he's upset about Elle. He thinks that she's sketchy, which is like fair. This is like a random girl that we just found in the middle of the street. She's wearing a hospital gown. We have no idea who she is. We don't know if she has parents. We don't know what's going on with her. She can barely speak. She speaks less than Mike's youngest sister, who at the time is like 3 or 4 because she's in her little high chair. And then we have like the stuff with Dustin, and they're so like protective of Dustin with his disability. Dustin is such a great character. He was definitely like one of my favorites in season 1. The stuff with like Nancy and trying to figure out what happens with Barb, and what I will give the Duffers is like she's still reeling from what happened with Barb, and like after season 1 she still has a gun in her room. She's trying to be protective. She's trying to like hold herself, but she's still affected by it all. Someone even pointed out that like after season 1 Steve still has the bat in his car, meaning like if anything happened he was still ready. Jonathan was such a great brother. Like this poor boy at the age of 16 had to pick out a casket for his youngest brother because his mom was, doing the thing with the lights. But once he realizes that maybe his mom was right, once Nancy like shows the photograph, he is so ready to figure out what's going on. He's such a kind, compassionate, creative guy. He is like very much willing to do whatever it takes to listen to his mom, to get his brother back, to like figure this out. He cares about Nancy. He's trying to protect her. Hopper was such a good character. I loved his dynamic with Joyce. Like you could tell that they obviously had something in the past. This is a small town. They've probably known each other for a very long time. And because of that, like, they care about each other so much, and he is such a smart character and what he's able to figure out, but so is Joyce. She's able to figure out a lot of the supernatural stuff, while Hopper is figuring out all the stuff that's happening with like the Hawkins lab, with like the coroner and everything, figuring out that Joyce is right, that something more is going on. I'm trying to think of other things for the dynamics of the characters. Like, I think it was really cool to have Nancy end up with Steve at the end of season 1, where it's just like, yeah, obviously she could have ended up with Jonathan at the end of season 1 because of what they went through. And then like season 2, they break up, and it's like because there's still this tension between her and Jonathan, but they have like their moments of like, I see you, I hear you, I feel you, which then leaves room for the relationship with Steve and Dustin to sort of blossom, which I do think is a really, really good relationship that they created in season 2. I love the relationship between Lucas and Max. I think that was one of the best like romantic relationships that they created. Like, they're so little that I genuinely just don't think any of them actually need to be in a relationship with anyone. Like, Max and Lucas have this really good banter. She's always like upset that they want to include her, but then they don't include her in things. And like, she's such a headstrong character, but Lucas is also kind of a headstrong character, so they do butt heads. I've said head a lot. They butt heads. They're not like fully able to see eye to eye until he's fully honest with her. And when he's fully honest with her, she realizes that, oh shit, things might actually be more intense. But he's so willing to protect her, even though he hasn't known her for so long, that it's like, oh, my babies, look at them, they're so cute. I love that she's the one that initiates the kiss with them too, you know? Like, she really likes Lucas. Lucas really likes her. I think that is such a beautiful dynamic. I think it's really cool too when they break up in season, like between season 3 and 4, because she's grieving the death of Billy, that like they still care about each other. She's still listening to his games on the radio. He's still trying to like reach out and make sure that she knows that he's there. And like he has that one line, I'm probably gonna butcher it, but it's just like, you know, she's like apologizing of like, I'm sorry I didn't like reach out, and he's like, no, I should have found you, like I should have met you where you were at. And I love that like he as a character is able to show his emotions. He's not hiding behind anything. He's very expressive with things. When things hurt his feelings, he lets people know that things have hurt him. I mean, I think all of them kind of do that, especially like season 1. But like Lucas is the one that remains the most consistent about it, which I think then makes the whole thing that happens with Max in season 4 with the running up that hill really effective. I think the relationship between Max and Elle is so fantastic, and we only get one season of it. We only get one season of these two girls being friends, and I adore their friendship. I remember I was watching that scene recently because I was trying to think of like stuff to talk about, and this being like one of the first things that I decided to, and I was looking at that relationship, and she's really just teaching Elle how to be her own person. Outside of Mike, outside of Hopper, she's there and she's like, you know, when they're trying on the clothes, it's like, don't find something that feels like Mike, don't find something that feels like Hopper, like what feels good for you? And so she's like picking all these things with like bright colors. She's getting to express herself. Like they're so cute. They're like sharing their crushes, all of their romantic woes together. Like they finally have these girl best friends, and then they separate them in season 4. And the only time they interact is when Max is like, are you real? When Elle is like mind hopping. And I want more of them, but now we don't get more of them because Max is in a coma and Elle is in the Upside Down doing all of her shit with Hopper. And like, speaking of Elle and Hopper, I adored their relationship in season 2. I don't know if it's obvious based on how I look, but I have daddy issues. So anytime there's like this begrudging, like older guy who maybe he had a kid, maybe he didn't, but he's not exactly willing to be a father again, is sort of forced to be this father. Like he sees this child and is like, gosh darn, I need to protect this kid with my life. And I don't want anything to happen with it. And he has those like wonderful heart-to-hearts with Elle in season 2, which then all goes away in season 3. And this is one of those big ones where I'm like, I'm genuinely telling you all to put a pin in this one, because I'm going to talk about the full-on character assassination of Jim Hopper. What I'm so frustrated with for this show is like they keep insisting on this love triangle between Steve, Nancy, and Jonathan. I didn't care about it after season 2 because it wasn't really a love triangle. She chose the one that she wanted. She wanted Jonathan. And he's like they don't know what to do with Steve anymore. And like part of that is because Steve was intended to die in season 1. They wanted him dead, but Joe Keery, which makes sense that they loved Joe Keery because I also love Joe Keery. I have been really into his music lately, but like then they didn't really know what to do with him. So then they made him the de facto babysitter, which I think is a really fun like character thing for him, that he's actually like really good with kids. He's like very much with the show in season 2 especially, it's like him and Dustin, but he's still also like in charge of Mike because he loves Nancy. He still loves her. He still has feelings for her. So of course he's going to make sure that her youngest brother is okay. And then he also really cares about Lucas. He goes like fist to fist with Billy when Billy decides to lay a finger on Lucas because he's racist. Because I think people forget about that. He's like, he tells Lucas like, Billy's like, you're dead. And then Steve's like, no, you are. And then he punches him and he hurts his fist because he's not good at fighting. But he gets his shit rocked to save these kids. And then Max, being an icon, she injects Billy with some drug that makes him dizzy or whatever. And then he passes out. But like, his relationship with Nancy didn't need to be reblossomed in season 4. I don't think Steve needs to be with anyone. Honestly, I don't think any of these characters need to be dating each other. I think they need to fucking figure their own shit out. I think they've all been so traumatized by this stuff that they need to figure out what actually matters to them. But because of the Duffer Brothers and how the stories are going, they're not going to. They're not going to be able to figure anything out. And I think that sucks. I really do. I think it's unfortunate. So, like, the relationship between Nancy and Jonathan just, like, kind of doesn't exist in season 4 because they're long distance, and for some reason they just couldn't have them together. So then they're forcing the romance between Nancy and Steve again, and then in season 5 it's, like, back to this whole love triangle thing, and Jonathan is apparently deciding to propose to Nancy, which I don't think she wants that. So I'm like, I hope my girl Nancy doesn't end up with anyone. No, you know what? Let her end up with Robin. I want her to end up with Robin. It's not going to happen. But, like, if she has to end up with someone, can it be a woman? No. But I think it'd be cool. And speaking of Robin, like, I loved her relationship with Steve in season 4, season 3. I think it was so great to give him this character where it's like he starts pining for her because there's something there in their connection. But then it's suddenly, oh, she's into women. But then it gives him this friend who's femme, and they're like able to grow together. They're able to have this friendship. He's able to sort of understand the importance of just companionship rather than romantic relationships with people his age, because I think that's one of those things that, like, even Robin mentions of, like, how many kids are you friends with? And he's friends with a lot. But she offers him that, like, relationship that doesn't have to be romantic. And for some reason in this show, every relationship just needs to be romantic, and that's one of the things that really bothers me about it all, that none of it needs to be romantic. They can just be friends. Like, none of them have to be defined by a romantic relationship. And something, you know, I feel like it connects to a lot of things in this world of just, you do not have to be defined by your romantic connection with another person. You can have a friendship with someone and have that mean something. Sometimes friendships can be soulmates. It's not just this romantic, ooh, I want to kiss this person. And even, like, with the whole, like, ooh, romantic kissing people with, like, Mike and Elle, that's, like, the big thing for season 3. And then she's like, I dump your ass. And then they, I guess, get back together, and then they're together in season 4, but then she's just constantly separated from Mike, so they just don't exactly have a relationship, which is just like, okay. I'm trying to think of, like, other relationship dynamics that I'm, like, a little upset about with how oh my god. Okay, I love Dustin and Steve. I do. Can we see Dustin hanging out with more of the other people? Like, he doesn't interact with Steve in season 1, like, barely anyone does, except for, like, Nancy and Jonathan. He was so pivotal to figuring things out in season 1. Like, he's the one that figures out the magnetic field thing. He is the one that tries to keep the peace between all the characters, and then season 2, he's kind of separated because he's dealing with the Dart thing, but he's able to have the stuff with Lucas and Max on top of the stuff with Steve. But then season 3, he's just completely separated from them all. Like, he's stuck with Steve, Robin, and Erica, and of course I think that's one of the funniest parts of the show. Like, I talk so much shit on the Russia stuff, but it's genuinely so funny, all the dynamics that they have with each other. I just wish that we could see more of it, and I think that's part of the reason why I like season 4, where it's like we get to see Dustin with Max, and I think they do have a really good friendship. Like, it doesn't have to be romantic. And then he's also with Lucas again. I even like him with, like, Nancy and Robin and all of them. I think they have a really good thing, but I don't think he needs to just be stuck with Steve. And in season 5, he's kind of just stuck with Steve. like now he's in the Upside Down with Steve, Nancy, and Jonathan. I want to see him with Mike. I want, like, the other boys to know that he's been getting his ass whooped by these bullies because he refuses to stop wearing the Hellfire Club shirt. Like, I wish they would go over that, but they just don't. I don't know, maybe we'll see. Like, I'm speaking before we have all of the information for season 5, so who freaking knows, maybe something happens and, like, we get more of them being together. But from, like, the one little tiny clip that I saw for the rest of the season of season 5, it's like, if you die, I die, and it's with Steve, so it's kind of like, okay. Oh my god, and I'm also just so sad that we don't get more of Will and Jonathan. Like, I think we had some good moments for them in season 4, especially when, like, you know, we have more full-on confirmation that Will is gay and he has feelings for Mike, and then he has that conversation with Jonathan, and Jonathan has this, like, I love you for who you are. You mean the world to me. Like, he was so motivated in season 1 by his, like, thinking that his brother's dead, basically. And then even in season 2, yeah, he's with Nancy a lot, but when everything comes down to it for Will, he's so concerned because that's his little brother. He loves his little brother. He has been more of a parent than Lonnie ever was, and sometimes even more of a parent than Joyce was. Because we have, like, the confirmation in season 5 that Joyce didn't go check on Will before she went to bed. She just came home, got wine drunk, and fell asleep and didn't know he was missing for 8 hours. Granted, Jonathan didn't check on him either, but I think that's more of, like, a mom thing to do than an older brother thing to do. He cares so much about his brother, and now we just don't get to see him being a brother to Will in season 5. Like, he has no idea that Will has powers now. Because he's just so focused on being the better man than Steve and trying to be better for Nancy and wanting to propose to her, which, again, I think is such a stupid thing for him to do, because I think he knows Nancy very well. Like, she told him that her mom married young, that, like, things weren't, like, great between the parents. And she's like, I just don't want to be like that. Like, she has the aspirations of being an investigative journalist, and I think we need to let my girl do it. But for some reason, he's like, she'll say yes, though, if I propose. Because that's the one way that I'm not going to lose her, is by proposing. Like, what do you mean? Like, what does that mean, you know? He needs to drop his inferiority complex, because I think he should understand that he's a very good photographer. He has the ability to get a good job of being a photographer. And, you know, maybe instead of Nancy being in the middle, Steve and Jonathan should just kiss. I think I just really want a lot of gay characters. But then I'm going to say, I don't really want Mike and Will together. I think it's fine for them to just be friends, you know? Like, or, you know, maybe what would be cool is the polyamorous solution. That, like, Nancy can date Jonathan can date Nancy and Steve, Robin can date Vicky and Nancy, and then for the youngest ones, it can be, like, Mike and Will can date, and then Mike can also date 11. But then it's weird because he's dating siblings. Because, yes, technically now at this point, 11, Will, and Jonathan are siblings. But I think, like, with the characters, like, I used to love them so much. They all had their very, like, definitive things that made them so separate from everyone else. But now we're at this point where if some of them die in season 5, I don't know if I'm going to be upset about it. Because also they've tried to trick us and say that, like, Hopper died or that Max died, but they're still alive. Because they all just have the thickest plot armor. Apparently the only characters that don't have plot armor are Bob, Barb, Alexi, and Eddie. I didn't really need to print out a picture of Eddie because he's not that important. But I did, because I guess Joseph Quinn was hot. I also really did not need to print out a picture of Billy, but he's here too. What was I saying? Oh, that I wouldn't care if one of them died. Yeah, part of me is sort of expecting for, like, 11 or Will to die, and I just don't think I'm going to be sad about it. I think some of the characters that I would be really sad about dying would be like Lucas. I don't think he should die, like at all. I think he's gone through so much and deserves to be just like living a really happy life after everything. I don't know. I'm looking at this board and I'm like, at this point, like Hopper should be dead. It could have been cool if they actually did kill Max. Like I love Sadie Sink, but like because they refused to kill off all the characters in either season 1, 2, 3, or 4, they all have this like extreme plot armor that if they die now, it's not going to hit me as hard as if they would have when they died, like if they had died in an earlier season. If Hopper dies now, I'm kind of rooting for it. I don't think they'll kill off Joyce, but like I guess I'd be kind of sad about it. I don't know if I'd cry. When we thought that Hopper was dead in season 3, I think I did cry. But now he's back and then he's kind of just like begging to die. Then I'm like, can we just let him, you know? I don't know. I really don't think any of these characters are going to die. And even if one of them does, well, I mean, this one's dead. Sorry, Erica, you're still chilling. This one's dead. This one's dead. These ones are dead, so I'll just erase them because I barely talked about them. They're not like super important to this video. I guess the Demogorgon is dead, but also he's like not dead. God, there's so many characters, it's kind of hard to keep up, and that again is like one of the problems with the show. And that's also where like the whole issue I have with these characters comes in, is that like because the Duffer Brothers refuse to kill any of them, they have to keep adding in more characters so that like we can feel the threat that that character might die. And that started with Bob, who I did just erase off the board, but like you did feel really sad when Bob died. It was very, very heartbreaking to watch him die. It was kind of sad seeing Alexei die. I will admit, back in when I think 2019, when I watched it, I was like, damn, they didn't have to do my boy like that. He was so happy. He just won a Woody Woodpecker. And then in season 4, I fully expected Eddie to die, because at that point I was like, they're not just going to introduce a character that we like and then not kill them off, because they refused to kill off any of the other characters, obviously except like Billy. Who he managed to survive season 2, but he didn't manage to survive season 3. I just don't have the capacity to care about the characters anymore, and I don't think the Duffer Brothers care about the characters that much anymore either, because if they did, more would be happening that would make us feel like they are in a life or death situation. Like, I just, watching it, don't feel concerned for their safety anymore, because if they're gonna let someone like Ted Wheeler, what'd I do? If Ted Wheeler has enough plot armor and more plot armor than like Bob, Alexei, or Eddie, they're not going to kill off the rest of the main cast, because then why wouldn't they have just killed Ted Wheeler? Why wouldn't they have just killed, I'm forgetting her, Karen Wheeler. I was going to do like the whole, someone else who I've video essays that I watched was always like, Mrs. Wheeler. Like, they got that going. They're not dead. They're still alive. They're in a hospital. And it's like, damn, it could have actually been really interesting to see both Nancy and Mike lose both of their parents on the same day. Though I did like the scene when, like, they wake up the mom and then she's like, is Holly okay? And she's, like, freaking out. I think that the actress for Karen Wheeler does a really good job with that. I won't exactly care fully if any of them die. Which then also brings me, because I've mentioned it a few times, of putting a pin in Hopper. Season 1 Hopper is such a good character. Like, he is, I think, one of my favorite parts to watch because of how he is able to figure out that things are going wrong. Like, he goes into the shed when he's looking for Will and he realizes that things are weird. He's like, why is this dent in the door? Like, was this here before? And then Joyce is like, I don't know. But we know, like, it actually technically wasn't there, because when he flung the door open to leave, it hit the wall. Like, he's able to find the bike, and when the body is found, and he asks, like, about the autopsy report and everything, he's like, actually, this is really weird. that our usual coroner didn't do something about this autopsy. Like, they're like, oh yeah, it's weird because this isn't like a high profile case. This is a child that lives in a middle of nowhere town. And he's like, oh my God, that's so weird. I want to go look at this body because there has to be something about this body that's like different that is causing problems. And then he does. And he cuts the body open. He realizes it's stuffing, and then he gets his shit knocked. And when he wakes up, he's like, he looks around and he's like, I know I didn't go on a bender, because I forgot to mention earlier, even like at this point, but like in season 1, Hopper is an alcoholic. Like, he's popping pills, he's drinking before he basically does anything. But he's like, I know I didn't drink. I know I didn't take pills. Something is wrong. So then he goes through his entire freaking house and he discovers a bug. And he's like, okay, this is a lot bigger than I thought. Will might still be alive. I need to go tell Joyce. And then he gets to her house and he sees all the lights and he's like, so he takes all of them apart. And then when he realizes that it's safe, he's like, you're right. Something's wrong. And he's able to help with Joyce from there. I love when all of the characters are able to come together, and he's very much like, I'm going to go rescue this boy. And then Joyce is obviously like, I'm coming too, because it's my son, as she should. And then in season 2, I think he's still a really good character. I love how much he cares about the Byers boys. Even in season 1, he has a lot of care for Jonathan specifically. And I really wish that we got to see more of Jonathan and Hopper, because I think, obviously you don't need a male figure or a female figure in your life that'll teach you the rights and wrongs. You can do that shit on your own. But I really wish that they had kept the dynamic between the two of them, because Hopper cares a lot about these boys. And he really cares about Joyce. And I don't see season 2 Hopper or season 1 Hopper trying to get into Joyce's pants, but then that's what he's trying to do in season 3. But anyway, before I get to that, in season 2, he's now like the father to Elle. He's trying his darndest to be a good father, and we already know that he lost his daughter in season 1 to cancer, and that is sort of what is the explanation as to why he's behaving the way that he behaves, of like, I lost my child, I'm afraid of losing 11 because I do care about her a lot, so that's why I'm not letting her leave, and we have very specific rules, and one day I'll let her go, but right now is not that time. So it's like, oh my God, like, he has this inability to let Elle go because he's afraid of not being able to control what happens to his child, because the last time he had a child, he wasn't able to control anything about her health. She ended up getting cancer and she ended up dying. And he's away from 11 for a while. He doesn't know that she's like ran away, but he leaves her like this little message of just like, I'm so sorry, like, I will be back soon once everything is figured out. Like, please make sure that you're eating and not just eating Eggos. Like, I really care about you, kid, and I'll be back soon. And then, like, he's doing his thing, and then 11 comes back, and then they have this heart-to-heart in the car. He tells her about Sarah. He tells her why he is the way he is, because he's had that time for the self-reflection, especially, I'm assuming, when he was, like, in the upside down and almost dying. And he was like, I really, really care about this girl and I don't want to lose her, but unfortunately I'm just so stuck in the upside down right now that I can't do anything. In their little heart to heart, it's so sweet. Like, he's like, whatever this look is, whatever it is that you want to do, like, I can like be okay with it. I will do what I can for you. Like, and she's like, yeah, like, this look is bitchin', and he's like, okay, yeah, bitchin'. It's such a sweet moment. And then they get rid of all of that in season 3. In season 3. In season 3, they turn him into, like, this sitcom action dad for some reason. He's, like, so aggressive about all of the stuff that's happening with Mike and Elle. Like, he just can't sort of do whatever about their relationship, I guess. He's, like, upset about it. And then Joyce is like, well, why don't you just, like, have a heart-to-heart, because, like, just tell them your boundaries, that we need to, like, hear each other and listen. And he's like, Do you want to heart to heart? You literally had one with her already. You just need to talk about your feelings about it again and talk about how you're afraid of like letting her go. And then he has the heart to heart with her, I'm pretty sure later on, before he supposedly dies. And like, okay, yeah, don't get me wrong. In season 4, when they're finally reunited together, it's kind of cute. It's very sweet. I think it's like cool. But like the letter that he wrote, and we get like the whole like reading over it, and she's like crying and stuff, would have been so much more impactful if that motherfucker remained dead. And now again in season 5, he's just like walking around with dynamite strapped to his chest because this motherfucker is ready to die because he should have died 2 seasons ago. I really hate how violent they make him in season 3. Like, he's a little bit better in season 4, if I'm remembering correctly, but my other problem from season 3 is his relationship with Joyce. I think that this man is just so goddamn pushy with her. She watched the person she was dating and in love with at the time die brutally from a demodog in front of her, and he's like, so you over Bob yet? Like, no, of course I'm not. She's like, oh, I have plans, because she's going home and being sad because her fucking boyfriend died. And then he's like, you were supposed to meet me at Enzo's for dinner, but you didn't because you were meeting with another man. It's like my Hopper in season 1 wouldn't have fucking done that. I'm just saying, fuck him because he's also a cop, but like, he would not have done that in season 1. He would not have done that in season 2, like, at all. I really don't think he would have done that. Because, like, the little conversation that he and Joyce have at the end of season 2 where she's like, oh, I'm trying to give Will space, but space is me being outside. And he's just kind of like, he, like, puts his arm around her. And it was so good, like, because it was just platonic. I know so many people love Chopper. I know that. I just don't think they work. Especially since he was so goddamn pushy for a relationship. And, like, yeah, obviously there was always some sort of tension between them. And part of me, like, I know there's a Broadway play and they probably explain a lot more about it in that, but I don't have the emotional capacity to deal with that at the moment. But based on me being a writer, like, I can tell from the subtext that they probably had some sort of romantic relationship before we see them as who they are now, especially when she's dating Bob and he's like, Bob, where it's just like, you could have had me, but, you know, I respect it and I'm glad that you're happy. And then season 3, he's like, you should be with me now. Check out my awesome Hawaiian shirt because now I'm Jim Hopper and I deserve to date you. And then Murray comes in and is like, you guys just need to fuck each other and get the sexual tension over with. Then they finally kiss in season 4 because her, like, literally Joyce's whole goddamn plotline for season 4 is getting Hopper back. I hate it. I hate it. She was so much more in season 1. The whole show revolved around her, basically. She was the main character. Winona Ryder was the one that was advertised as, like, the main draw for this show. And then they devolve her to being a love interest for Hopper. Like, he's going into the Upside Down and he's like, how do you get more beautiful every day? And she's like, you didn't answer my question. He's like, you didn't either. I don't care. I don't care. Stop forcing this romance down my throat. Same thing with fucking the love triangle between Nancy, Steve, and Jonathan. Like, I don't give a fuck. The other character assassination that I'm upset about is Robin, because she was so freaking cool, and I kind of touched on it earlier with, like, her dynamic with Steve and her being gay. Like, I do appreciate what she's able to do for Will of, like, coming to terms with his sexuality, and especially when she realizes that he does have feelings for Mike. It's like, oh, okay, like, this is probably an unrequited thing. I know how that feels because of Tammy, and I want to just, like, make sure that he understands that I know what he's going through, and yes, I'm a lesbian, and yes, he's gay. And a lot of neurodivergent people do associate with Robin because she's very much, like, a little out there, but I feel like they turned her from this really smart, capable solo character who can handle herself and has a really fun relationship into just comedic relief instead of being more. Like, she becomes their pop culture go-to, which, like, I guess if you need to have a pop culture character, but the fucking scene in season 5 that bothered me so much, they're like talking about how to figure out the tunnels and stuff and how to help the kids who might be being attacked by Vecna or slash Henry slash Mr. Whatsit, whatever, how many names you want to give him. And she just goes like, "Dick," and they're like, "Huh?" And it's supposed to be like haha funny because, like, why is she saying the word for the male appendage when she's a lesbian, like, haha. But it was a pop culture reference to the movie Tom, Dick, and Harry, which I've never seen, and so she explains the plot of it, but, like, her being so out there, then her suddenly doing, like, the flux capacitor, which is a reference to Back to the Future. That's, for some reason, all she's good for. She's just there now to be a gay mentor to Will and be the quirky, different girl who doesn't know when to stop talking and has trouble with social cues. And that's not what she was in season 3. That's not how she was introduced to us. And I feel so bad for Maya Hawke. Maya Hawke, you deserve so much better than to just be this girl who goes on all these long-winded ramblings that sometimes make no sense, or, like, they eventually make sense because she's forced to make them make sense. Like, she was a lot more than that. I also am, like, not thrilled with how they're treating Joyce anymore. I kind of briefly mentioned it when I was talking about Hopper, of, like, she was the main character of the show, and she was really, really smart in season 1. Like, her figuring out the thing with the lights was so impressive to me. Like, she saw a light flicker once, you know, she heard the telephone call, and she knew in her gut that her child was alive. Her baby is out there. She was this fierce, protective mother. And then in season 3, like, you know, granted, if I also noticed that all of my magnets, especially, like, if all the magnets that I have right here just suddenly stopped working, I'd be like, this is fucking weird. But, like, for some reason that just distracts her from, like, everything else in season 3, and she just up and leaves her kid. And then she does the same thing in season 4. But then she's back to being this overprotective mother in season 5, where she's not letting Will do things when he would be able to actually help them in their missions. I don't think she was ever, like, a great mom to Jonathan, but, like, her being like, "Jonathan, you can do it, right?" Like, bro. Oh my God. She was not really like that. Like, the moments between Jonathan and Joyce in season 1 are so fucking good. The show was also kind of a drama. It was a drama between this family who one of them believes that the child is dead and the other one believes that the child's alive. That scene, I have chills thinking about it because of how fucking good it is, where he's like, "So while you're talking to the Christmas lights, I'm gonna be buying a casket for our dead child," or whatever whatever it is that he says. He's so passionate about it, and she's so passionate. They're both so stubborn. But she still cares enough about him too that when Lonnie comes over, she's like, "Where does he want to go to school, Lonnie? What does he want to do for a living?" And he's like, "Well, with the money, he can go anywhere he damn well please." And she's like, "NYU, Lonnie. He's wanted to go to NYU since he was 6 years old." And he's like, "Then I'll go to NYU." But it's like, that to me was really her proving how much she does care about Jonathan, and then we don't really get any more of that. I don't know, these parents aren't exactly great at noticing when their kids are gone for a really long time. I can't really give them the benefit of the doubt for stuff like that, because, I don't know, I feel like I would notice if one of my sons is going a little woohoo and it wants everything to be like sub-zero temperatures, and then my other son just disappeared. I would be concerned. Okay, I'm going to talk about Will. I think Will having powers in season 5 makes sense, but I feel like the Duffer Brothers don't exactly know what to do with Will. He's kind of like characters that I've played in the past, where they're a main character, but the main point of them is that they're more of a plot device rather than actually being a character within the story. In season 1, literally the whole thing is about finding Will. And then season 2, it's about what's going on with Will. Something is happening with him. There's some sort of devious threat and we want to save him. And then season 3, he kind of just gets pushed over to the side. Like, we have the whole, he really wants to play D&D thing with his friends. He's, that's kind of the main thing. They're like, "It's not our fault you're not interested in girls." And then that's, like, sort of all he does. And then season 4, he has a little bit more. He is like Elle's brother. He is like trying to help figure out what's going on with the Upside Down and stuff. But like that's kind of all he does. And now he's back to being like an essential plot device of now he has powers. So now we have 2 characters with powers. And then of course they bring in 8, Callie, something like that. It starts with a C. Where now he has powers, so now he's actually able to do something. He actually has the ability to fight. Like he's their sorcerer, their wizard, Will the Wise. But they just still don't really know what to do with him, and I also just have a hard time enjoying Will as a character now because of Noah. Zionism is sexy Schnapp. Fuck Noah Schnapp. Fuck the guy that plays Murray. They're both terrible people. You know, I will be making a lot of donations to other like different Palestinian relief funds because like, and I'm trying to like watch this show on like not Netflix, so they don't exactly get views. It is hard though. But I want to say like fuck Noah Schnapp. I don't think he's a good actor. I think he was good in season 2, but now he just kind of spends the whole time like guys, I don't know. And then he has like his thing and like which he apparently like did in one take because it just like looks so good. It's hard for me to just take Will as a character seriously because of who plays him, and I know there's the whole separate the artist from the art. Will literally fucking Noah Schnapp is like, I think the most misunderstood character in Stranger Things is Vecna / Henry Creel. And like the one tweet was just like, why? Because you saw him murdering innocent children and you empathize with that. But that also just made me worried in terms of the story. Sorry, this is a little tangent, but based on like that specific statement from Noah Schnapp, I am worried that, the Broadway play, right? We're going into another tangent on top of that tangent. I think in that they talk about like Dimension X, and that's where Henry Creel disappeared to, and I guess that's sort of where the mind flare comes from. So based on what Noah Schnapp Will says about Vecna being a misunderstood character, has me worried that Vecna's going to turn into this character that's misunderstood because he is actually being controlled in the same way that Billy was being controlled. He's not doing this because he's the bad guy, it's because the mind flare is the bad guy, and he's trying to like appease the entities that are possessing him or something. And I would be really upset about it. Like, if you're going to have a big bad, just stick with it being a big bad just because he's played by an attractive actor, because Jamie Campbell Bower? I think that's his name. He's in Twilight. I think because they have an attractive actor, they're like, we can't make him the full bad guy because beautiful people are good, I guess. I mean, so many people try to justify anything that Billy does, but it's like, no, Billy was a misogynist. He was a racist. I'm sure he was homophobic. He was all of the ists and icks. But people try to be like, well, he had a bad childhood. And it's like, that doesn't excuse his racism. That doesn't excuse the abuse that he gives his youngest sister, who literally is just existing. And then he dies, and people want me to be sad about it. Like, no, I'm not going to be fucking sad about it. And I'm not going to be sad when or if Vecna dies, because this man is a pedophile. Did you see what he was doing to Will in that first episode? It was like a hentai. Like, and then like the stuff with Holly, it's just like, I think him taking children and doing these weird things to them because of some ulterior motive is just weird, and I don't think should be justified, even with it just being like, well, he had no control over himself because of the mind flare. Like, ew, what is that? Why can't we just stick to these characters being bad people, you know? For some reason, we have to constantly make excuses for characters that are bad, and I don't think that we need to do that. Like, I think Vecna is a compelling character. I don't fully grasp why he's doing what he's doing sometimes, but it's interesting to know that, like, oh, he was one. Like, he killed his family. It was blamed on his father, and he has this power that is a lot greater than what we've seen before, that they were trying to sort of replicate his powers in other kids because it was so wild and crazy and whatever. And then he's going after teenagers who are all have gone through traumatic things and is using their trauma against them as like a way to get to them. Like he just sort of can do that, I guess. I don't know. He's an interesting character. I kind of just wish he was in a different show, you know? But for like the show that he's in, I think he's cool. I really just hope they don't try to do literally anything that justifies why he does what he does. I just want him to be the bad guy. Is that too much to ask for? I don't know. Oh, I'm just sad about what they're doing to Max. Like, Max is such a good character, and now she's just in a coma, and I think honestly having her die would have hit really hard in season 4 instead of her just being in a coma. It would have been a very interesting thing to see these characters grieving her, and then it gives this a whole like, this threat is real. Vecna is a real threat, that he did kill, and like, okay, yeah, Max did die, but she didn't need to come back to life. She could have stayed dead, just like some of these other characters should have stayed dead. Hopper. But like, now she's just stuck in this like purgatory of Henry Creel's mind, and so she's trying to help Holly, but that's like all she's doing. And it sucks because one of the most impactful episodes or moments from the show is in season 4 when she has the whole running up that hill thing. Like, for me, that moment is so impactful because of how she is listening to the song. They're playing it for her because they're hoping it'll help. And so she's having all these flashbacks to all of the times that she's been with, you know, all of her friends, all the connections that she has built in the last few years since she's moved to Hawkins. And like, it's almost in this Harry Potter way, not to bring up the other demon of J.K. Rowling, but in Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, towards the end, you know, Voldemort's trying to possess Harry's body, and he starts to think about all of the love that he's been given throughout his life, even though it's been so hard. He's had, you know, Sirius Black, even though he just watched him die. He has Ron, he has Hermione, etc. And he has this whole, like, I feel sorry for you because you're never going to know what it's truly like to be loved. And that's almost sort of what that moment to me felt like, where, yes, I think the song saved her, but there was something else in her of, she loves these people so much that she's not ready to leave them behind. And then that also makes when she is dying even more upsetting because she's not ready to. She's telling Lucas as he's holding her that she's scared, she can't see, she can't feel. Like, it's heartbreaking to watch, and then she's still alive after all of that. Another issue for the show is the consistency problem that it has, at least just in terms of its own lore, because in season 1, when the characters are going into the Upside Down, they have to go into these full-on hazmat suits. It is so dangerous down there. Multiple people died while they're wearing these hazmat suits, but now we just have like Elle, Hopper, Dustin, Nancy, Steve, all of them in there without wearing any protective gear because it's fine. But then we also have like the military in there, and they don't have to wear anything protective. I still don't understand how they got a whole ass military base and helicopters and trucks in there, I guess with their scheduled burns and stuff, but that's years of construction that we just didn't know about until season 5. And I don't think they would have been able to build a military base like that in 18 months and have it be functioning the way that it is, you know? Sure, whatever, it's a show, suspension of disbelief, but like, that is a very inconsistent thing, you know, about what the actual threat from the Upside Down is. Is it toxic? Because they mentioned that Hawkins has to be quarantined because of these random dust particles that sort of came, so they're constantly getting their health checked. But then these military people can also just walk around in the Upside Down without things like affecting them, and that's so weird. That's just so weird. You know, another thing that I'm like a little pissed off about is the fact that it took so long to get this show. I think Stranger Things was really good. They were actually kind of consistent. And then, of course, like, COVID happened, and that's not their fault at all. I don't think we can blame them for what happened with COVID and that pushing back the release schedules for things and the filming. But having to wait 3.5 years basically for season 5, and then they're spacing it out in the weirdest way possible. And I think it was the Dead Meat podcast that I was listening to and talking about this, where they said that, like, this is the last time where they're actually able to keep the interest of the audience with it, which, like, I guess is fair. That's fair. Like, it's almost been 10 years since the first episode, and, like, after 10 years, sometimes people just forget about things. It's kind of becoming like a vintage show. Like, I'm 23 now, and the show came out when I was 14. I was in high school. I have graduated high school and college since the show came out. And I think that's a little crazy. Again, I'm not going to blame them for what happened between season 3 and 4. That was a global pandemic. Nothing really could have helped them there. But for some reason, that meant that, like, each episode had to be, like, over an hour and a half long for the most recent season. And for so much time in each episode that's happening, like, nothing with the characters is going on. You're giving me an hour and a half long episode, and yet I don't feel like I'm getting any character development. And Stranger Things is also sort of what started the whole, like, limited series, like, each season only being a certain amount of episodes. I don't think it's, like, the only one that does that, but, like, they are the big one. I think if you think about any show that has taken so long and years between seasons with very long episodes but shorter, very long episode times but shorter seasons, it's Stranger Things. Stranger Things was kind of the beginning of that, and now everyone is saying they want shows that have filler episodes. They want shows where sometimes the things they're doing might not exactly matter fully, but eventually, you know, it could be a thing that's called back upon later. People want 22 episode seasons. People want shows where they're a little bit more consistent with how good the episodes are between, or, like, not. I don't know. I'm kind of just rambling about that at this point, but I think once Stranger Things is over, I have this hope that maybe TV could have the opportunity to go back to normal instead of being what it is right now, which is just these very, very long episodes but short seasons. For, like, the Duffer Brothers need to just make movies, because then their characters don't have to be as fleshed out. The characters don't have to have great dynamics. Like, of course, they can still be important to the story, but I think that they just need to focus on movies rather than TV shows, because while Stranger Things is this fantastic, or was this fantastic show with this fantastic concept, these fantastic characters, it's not that anymore. It's become too big for its own good. It's become complex, and it didn't need to be. It had such a simple story. Like, it was the pilot episode is so good that even though it hadn't even been, like, 10 years since the first episode had ever aired, I was talking about it in storytelling fundamentals. Like, we sat down and we read the pilot. We didn't watch the pilot. We read the original script that they had given, because that's how good it was. I don't know. I might do, like, a video about shows where, like, the pilot is just so good that it really keeps you interested. I might talk about how things then sort of do end up falling apart, but it's not exactly a necessary thing. But I want to talk about, like, fully more in depth about why the pilot is so fantastic. You know, I want people to really understand from a screenwriting perspective why it's good. But I don't know. I still want to know what's going to happen to these characters. But I'm also kind of over the show. Like, nothing about it feels particularly interesting anymore. I don't know. Someone needs to die. I don't know who it's going to be. Everyone thinks it's going to be Steve. I personally think Will and Elle and Vecna all need to die for things to go back to a relative bit of normal. Which when, like, sorry, Mike Wheeler, you lose your boyfriend and your girlfriend. Hopper should probably die. Release Joyce from the shackles of being in a heterosexual relationship with a cop. Nancy needs to move to a big city and become an investigative journalist. Steve also needs to move to a big city, but a different one. I think he would thrive somewhere that she wouldn't be. Jonathan can maybe go with Nancy and they can live their life. I think he'd be a really good house husband, you know. Robin can do her radio show somewhere else. Like, Max maybe should just be taken off of life support. Sorry, I love her so much. And then Dustin and Lucas can be like definitely Dustin should be a scientist. I think he loves science a lot. Lucas could be like a therapist, you know. I think he's really good at understanding emotions. And then Mike can stay in Hawkins and sort of be the one that's like remembering things, and maybe he's like with Joyce, you know. That like both of his parents died and now he has Joyce, and then Joyce lost her son, but she has Mike, who will remind her so much of Will, and then she still has her son Jonathan, but she wants bigger and better things for him. Like maybe Nancy and Jonathan go to NYU. They mentioned Emerson. I don't fucking remember. I guess that's maybe where Nancy wants to go, but like let Nancy go to Boston. Like Jonathan can go to NYU. Maybe Steve comes to Philadelphia, you know? Like I just don't think I really care about the endings for these characters at this point, honestly. And this is just me thinking about what would be good for them. Rockin' Robin needs to go to Los Angeles or something and start her little gay show there. I think she would thrive. Erica could also be a scientist. Maybe she and Dustin have like a really cool connection with that where they're able to be scientists together, you know? I don't know. A show I used to love has gone downhill, and this isn't the first time it's happened, and I'm going to talk about some other shows where it's happened of like this first season was really good and then things after started to fall apart. But yeah, thank you for watching my ramblings as I talk about Stranger Things, because I think all of my friends and my partner are really tired about hearing me talk about Stranger Things and all my problems with it. So maybe now that I did this with you guys, I won't have to talk about it anymore. Yeah. Happy opening to my new show, everyone. Here's my heart. Bye, guys.